Meditation is like giving your brain a wash, a healthy washing, because like everything else in this conditioned existence of ours, things gather dust. We need to reshuffle, we need to sweep away the dirt, the dust that inevitably will gather. And for that, we need to practice. Practice being kind. How about that? Practice being kind to yourself by giving yourself a gentle, well-deserved smile. Well-deserved because you're alive. That's enough. Sometimes you have to start with as basic of a state as that. Otherwise, what we tend to do is we like to celebrate the states of being of yesterday or conquests of yesterday as it relates to your meditation practice. Calmness, tranquility that you might have tasted in the past. That's good because it reminds you of how things were and what you have been able to get to thanks to your efforts and trust and confidence. But to simply do that all the time without having anything taking place now, that's problematic. Because sooner or later, you will discover that you have nothing to really anchor yourself on as it relates to the present mode of practice. What's taking place now? The Dhamma is timeless. The Dhamma is immediately effective. It's visible right here. For whom? For you. So recalling states of being, no matter how lofty, how beautiful they may have been, how genuine they may have been, but so long as they're from the past, in the past, then you're simply trying to regurgitate some memory of a past. Albeit you were the author of it, fine, but it's not happening now. It's simply a glimpse of yesterday. And that's not genuine Dhamma anymore. Yes, we need those memories to anchor us down in recalling and remembering, and that's one of the instructions that Lord Buddha gives us. Yes, but it does not stay there. It has a purpose. And what is the purpose? To get you to really invite that effort, determination, and willingness to continue. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels, as they say. You see this in elderly population or individuals who have lost what they had. And they sit down and they talk to you about their yesteryears. Oh, yes, it was like this. So we shouldn't do that. And that's why when you sit to meditate, when you sit to practice, every time you bring in sati in your busy, busy life, just for yourself, no one has to know, just in your mind, just creating that even tiny little pocket of time where you're present can be wonderful because it gives you a breath of fresh air, not the stale air from yesterday. So this practice requires trust, but trust without effort, trust without living in the present really Is it really trust? It could easily turn into wishful thinking. And people do this a lot. People in this Dhamma and discipline have done that for all this time, 26 centuries. You always find this. It's a human tendency, you might say it is, think of it rather. Because it anchors you, if it does anchor you into anything, it anchors you in complacency, in laziness. And this is one of the biggest hurdles for the practitioner. So we need to spin the wheel, but only for the purpose of moving forward, not to get stuck. So you can ask yourself, okay, this thought I had, or this memory that I'm bringing into mind, this perception, might even be this feeling. Does this have to do with yesterday? Does this have to do with the past? My past, albeit, but is it the past that I'm referring to here? The old dossiers of yesterday. If it is, then say, okay, I need to make use of you and drop you and make new ones. It's like individuals who seek to make new connections in life with people, genuine connections, with the genuine good desire to have a life that's replenished with fruitful relationships. You know, this is in reference to lay people, of course, especially in society. But in order for you to do that, you have to relinquish in your mind, what this other person meant for you, what this relationship meant for you, etc., and allow the new to take shape by trusting. But you can't trust in the past. Even your memories, they're not trustworthy because you're the only witness to it, aren't you? Because if we bring in another person from that incident, from where that event took place, they might be presenting a totally different set of scenarios than what you're recalling. Why is that? Emotions. What they have done for us at that time and through the course of time. We embellish things, colorize things, we doctor things, we Photoshop our memories. But you can't do that with the present. That's why many of us will go back to the past. And yes, it was wonderful. This I've discovered a lot in interviews with students of meditation over the course of time, because people will embellish the practice, especially when it comes to interview. I've seen this again and again with so-called seasoned meditators as well as novices, newbies. But why do we do this? Fear. Fear of what this new present represents. And this is where, again, that very beautiful element has to be brought in. That of faith, confidence, trust in the present, in you, in this path that has brought you thus far in your life. And why are you still doing what you're doing to maintain the course of this path for yourself in this life? You could be doing something else. Instead of reading the suttas or listening to the discourses, you could be doing something else. You might be going to the movies or something. But you're not. So that requires you to take a moment and say, pause and just say to yourself, why? Asking yourself why. And then give yourself a, pat on the back. That's okay. And saying, yes, I trust. I'm trusting something, even though to me it's still not as tangible as I would like it to be. That's fine. That will take you a long way. So trust is a big part of this path. Without saddha, which is faith and trust, you won't go far. You would simply be making new sandcastles for yourself. Call it Dhamma sandcastle, but it is a sand castle. Even actual rock-built, stone-carved castles will wither away and erode. Just give it some time. So I would like you to bring that aspect of your own practice, because each of us, sooner or later, will have to face this reality of, do I have enough faith in me or not? Is there enough confidence in me or not? And there's also this thing called overestimation of one's own progress. Call it overconfidence. That's also very shaky ground, because we fall. Lord Buddha had another name for that. He called it conceit, mana. That's not healthy either, because you're not seeing the reality. You're overdoing, like I was saying, people embellish. You're embellishing something. And there's no reality in the past. Reality is only happening here. But this path requires us to truly be fair with ourselves, instead of thinking that you have nothing to bring into the table. Because you do. You do. So here we have today for this sutta, Venerable Meghiya. And we're going to see elements of what I just shared with you vis-a-vis saddha, faith, confidence. And by the same token, overconfidence, which usually means it is a camouflaged version of, basically, in essence, it is simply craving, tanha, that's being sugar-coated with something else. It could even be a drive to be practicing. So it could be self-convincing, quite. So this is something that I invite individuals who, every time they start a retreat, it's so difficult. You have to be really patient with the individual, and as a teacher especially, to pull them back from this gung-ho drive that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it's supposed to be a retreat. Retreat. You're retreating from what? From all that excessive way of pushing yourself forward. That, as you guessed it, is an unhealthy approach to the practice as well. Remember, this path is the Majjhima Pada, the middle path. So it requires finesse on your part. Just like when you walk. You know, when I remember I was barely a teenager, and I would look at my mother or my aunts and people who would wear high heels. And how do they walk? I would just like, this is incredible. Because imagine the balance that you need to have. I was having a hard time just balancing myself barefoot, walking, and they were doing this. So I was like, wow, I was inspired by the amount of balancing that's going on. But for some reason, when we come to the practice, when you drive the car, you have to maintain middle path. When you're pushing on the gas pedal versus the brakes, you're alert. You're practicing the middle path. So bringing that mindset into the practice, the real meditation practice, and especially your life, is key. So not too much, not too little. And see if you're going to identify this in the Venerable Meghiya, as he's going to be facing some challenges. And there's also, so today's sutta, by the way, I forgot to mention, is from the Anguttara Nikaya, the Numerical Discourses, from the Navaka Nipāta, which is the book of the nines. And so we know from that, the 9 reference, Lord Buddha is going to be discussing 9 different things here. So it is Anguttara Nikaya 9.3, Meghiya Sutta, the Venerable Meghiya. So let's begin. This is what I personally heard. Once the Blessed One was living in Chalika, on the Chalika mountain, when the Venerable Meghiya, who at that time was the Blessed One's attendant, approached and after paying homage to him, stood to one side and said, Bhante, I wish to go for alms at my native village of Jantu. Meghiya, you may do so at whatever time you deem to be appropriate for you. Then, when morning came, the Venerable Meghiya put on his robes, and while taking his alms bowl and outer robes with him, he walked to his native village of Jantu to obtain his alms food. Once he had finished collecting his alms food on his return, and after the meal was over, he went to the bank of the river Kimikala. Now, as he kept walking up and down the Kimikala's riverbank, he came upon a lovely mango orchard that was delightful, and the thought occurred to him, this mango orchard is quite beautiful and lovely. In fact, it's just the perfect spot for the son of a clansman to apply himself by putting in the effort for his spiritual striving. Let me now go and get permission from the Blessed One to use this mango orchard as my very place for striving and apply myself in my practice. So basically he goes to his old village and then he comes back and then he's walking up and down, and you can imagine in those days it wasn't so crowded as things are now in the world, especially in a place like India. So imagine covered up with, mango orchard and the birds singing and the river flowing, and it's just perfect. So far, so good. Especially when he has the thought, the desire to be using that place and his time. After all, that's why he's Bhikkhu now. He's become, he's gone forth to practice. And this place is perfect. So the outside circumstance to him seemed perfect. How could you not sit there? But because he's the attendant to Lord Buddha, he has to go and let at least his teacher know, Bhante, if you need me, I'll be there, type of a thing. So let's see what happens. So the Venerable Meghiya went back and approached the Blessed One, and after paying his respects, he sat to one side and said, Bhante, this morning I put on my robes, and while taking my alms bowl and outer robes with me, I walked to my native village of Jantu to obtain my alms food. Once I had finished collecting my alms food, on my return, and after the meal was over, I went to the bank of the river Kimikala. Now, as I kept walking up and down the Kimikala's riverbank, I came upon a lovely mango orchard that was delightful, and the thought occurred to me, this mango orchard is quite beautiful and lovely. In fact, it's just a perfect spot for the son of a clansman to apply himself by putting in the effort for his spiritual striving. Let me now go and get permission from the Blessed One to use this mango orchard as my very place for striving and apply myself in my practice. So, Bhante, if the Blessed One would permit me, then I can go and continue my practice by meditating in that lovely mango orchard. And the Blessed One said, Meghiya, wait for now. I am by myself at the moment. Wait until another bhikkhu comes. What a beautiful human moment. It's like it takes us back. Imagine Lord Buddha, this deity that people have turned him into, this supernatural being, He's asking his attendant to not leave. Such a beautiful, simple, matter-of-fact type of a moment, which we neglect to consider often. But there's also something beyond that that is taking place here. He came, Venerable Meghiya came to ask Lord Buddha's permission, and Lord Buddha didn't say, no, don't go. He's saying, wait for a while. Wait a moment. Wait until another bhikkhu comes. So what that also is telling us that on that day, on that particular time, at that particular time, Lord Buddha was alone with Meghiya. So Meghiya had gone, spent some time over there. So Lord Buddha was by himself. We don't know the age of Lord Buddha at the time, and Lord Buddha was, he's the biggest proponent of seclusion, of course. But there's something else going on, apparently. Let's see. But for a second time, the Venerable Meghiya addressed the Blessed One with his request, while also adding, Bhante, the Blessed One has nothing more left for him to do. There is no need for the Blessed One to continue on improving himself, unlike me, Bhante, for I still have much work to do. So, Bhante, if the Blessed One would please permit me, I wish to go and continue my practice by meditating in that lovely mango orchard. Do you see what's happening here? He's saying, yeah, but no, I'm going to go. You're fine. Plus, you're the Buddha. You're not, you don't need what I need this. I need this, Bhante. Flat out, he's showing to Lord Buddha and to us 26 centuries later that he does not have confidence and trust in his teacher. I try to remind people over the course of time that I've been teaching. And when students come and asking for instructions, before they take me on as a teacher, I always have to remind them, you're going to be the ultimate teacher for yourself. But if you're calling me your teacher, that means that you need to trust me. You need to trust the process. Otherwise, why call another person a teacher? Really? Because if the teacher says something and you say, no, I think this is the right thing. Or why do you always do this to the teacher? You should do this. Already you're establishing yourself that you already know better than the teachers. Hence, that completely nullifies, cancels out this thing, this relationship that you wanted to be established in the first place, that of a teacher and a student. It immediately cancels itself, like Devadatta did with Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha was the teacher of all bhikkhus. And Devadatta came in and said, you're not accurate, you're not right. In fact, you're wrong. When a student thinks that way or questions the teacher, that's not healthy or wise scrutiny, by the way. When it's coming from another place where it's lacking confidence and faith in the teacher, like the case is here with Meghiya, Venerable Meghiya, then basically the student is forfeiting that relationship, not the teacher. But Lord Buddha is so compassionate. And we all have to emulate him and his example. Anybody who's considering oneself as a teacher on this path, especially, we need to emulate them. We have to do our very best. But the student also bears the responsibility to maintain that healthy relationship of a student to create. It's a relationship, after all. It's not one-sided. So here, Venerable Meghiya is saying, you've done your work. Now it's my time to do my work. And plus, look at me. I'm being a good student. I'm telling my student, my teacher, I'm going to go and practice. Meanwhile, he's craving to go to that lovely orchard. And probably he's even thinking, if I keep arguing with the teacher here, the sun might set and the beautiful mango tree, I mean, come on. It's like, yeah, I have to go. Like, I'm wasting time here. Bhante, come on, work with me. Do you see the tanha that I was referring to earlier? The drive is not the Dhamma. There's a certain overconfidence that is clouding his understanding of the role of a student there. Plus, there is no faith in the teacher. And for a second time, the Blessed One said, Meghiya, wait for now. I am by myself at the moment. Wait until another bhikkhu comes. And for a third time, the Venerable Meghiya said, Bhante, the Blessed One has nothing more left for him to do. There is no need for the Blessed One to continue on improving himself, unlike me, Bhante, for I still have much work to do. So, Bhante, if the Blessed One would please permit me, I wish to go and continue my practice by meditating in that lovely mango orchard. At this point, the Blessed One replied by saying, Well, Meghiya, if you continue insisting like this to go off and strive in your practice at this particular time, then what would I say to that other than you may leave and do as you deem to be appropriate? What can I say, he's saying? Look at the humility of Lord Buddha. He didn't boss the Meghiya. At times you see him actually chastising, but in this case, with this particular student, Lord Buddha is seeing that there is a desire to go and practice, yes, but it's misplaced, and he's undermining the advice or the instruction or the guidance of the teacher. And why did he even come to ask for permission? To have Lord Buddha give him. So he's like those teenagers that come to the parent and say, Mommy, I need $10, or not $10 anymore. I need $100 to go to the movies, and we're going to go and have fun this weekend. I need your, permission. You already like set the ground rules for us, apparently. It's either this or nothing, or I'm going to give you hell, Mommy. So there's no permission being asked. You just come there to tell Lord Buddha, this is my plan. Thank you very much, and I need you to agree to it. I will do it anyhow. And Lord Buddha is saying, well, what can I say? Because you've already made up your mind. And whatever I say means nothing. Okay, then you're a grown up, you're a grown man, go do whatever you want. Then the Venerable Meghiya got up from his seat, and after paying his respects to the Blessed One, he left and went straight to the mango orchard, where he found a tree to sit under and spend the day. Now, as the Venerable Meghiya was sitting there in that mango orchard, he kept having a series of 3 types of recurring thoughts, which were evil and unwholesome in nature, whereby he was being harassed by thoughts of sensuality, angry thoughts, and thoughts of harming others. If you've ever meditated, despite the fact that you might want to put all the good effort and energy, and your body's aching or this and that, and you're taking a good chunk of time from your busy day, let's say, and you're really genuinely sitting and you have all of these intruding thoughts. Where are these things coming from? Why? This should not be happening. Because I'm putting in my part. I mean, come on, hello, mind. Why are you coming in with all this nonsense? I don't need this. So let's see what happens to Venerable Meghiya with this. Then it occurred to the Venerable Meghiya, well, this is very strange and quite a spectacle indeed. For how is it that, having left the lay life and gone forth into homelessness, willingly and out of faith, yet here I am, being tossed around and hassled by these evil and unwholesome thoughts of sensuality, angry thoughts and thoughts of harming others. Then the Venerable Meghiya went back and approached the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, he sat down to one side and said, Bhante, something unusual happened. You can almost sense Lord Buddha sitting there saying, oh yeah, go on. Not to trivialize, but there are these beautiful human elements. How could we neglect them? It's beautiful. Bhante, something unusual happened. When I left and went to that mango orchard and sat meditating under a tree, I kept having a series of 3 types of recurring thoughts, which were evil and unwholesome in nature, whereby I was being harassed by thoughts of sensuality, angry thoughts, and thoughts of harming others. Then I thought to myself, well, this is very strange and quite a spectacle indeed. For how is it that having left the lay life and gone forth into homelessness, willingly and out of faith, yet here I am being tossed around and hassled by these evil and unwholesome thoughts of sensuality, angry thoughts, and thoughts of harming others? Now, this is where Lord Buddha is responding. By the way, these are things that do happen. Individuals will experience lust out of the blue sometimes. Like, why am I thinking about this person? Person that might never have had anything to do with you. Maybe an image or a movie actor or something, or food. There's a lot of lust that arises especially during retreats. Try fasting for a day or two. You'll see what that, if you've never done a retreat, all of a sudden there's this desire for food, and you think this is foolish, like it's just food, but not in those moments. So they become so compelling. They become so compellingly dominating on the mind that there's no way that you can sit in that lovely orchard of yours. You want to run, you want to jump, you want to get up, and it's like, because what happens is there's tremendous restlessness. All these 3 types of negative, unwholesome, akusala states of mind will bring up guilt, restlessness, remorse, and definitely no practice is going on. You're fighting with yourself to maintain sati. Without sati, to watch and say, it's okay, this is what's happening. So he was in a big turmoil as he approached and he's giving his report. So Lord Buddha says, Meghiya, when the heart has not yet experienced release, not having reached a deep level of contentment, 5 things are necessary for it to reach maturity, whereby the heart experiences release. Now, what are these 5? Here, Meghiya, the bhikkhu becomes a true spiritual friend himself, and as such, associates with others who are also true spiritual friends. So take note. I encourage you to establish good connections with other beings, other human beings who are qualified to be called true spiritual friend for you. Because you will be an anchor for them, they will be an anchor for you. You will resonate. It's like a river cannot have one bank, one shore. It needs 2 at least, right? So that's that. You need that support. Lord Buddha is saying you need first to become a good spiritual friend yourself. This is the first crucial condition that must be cultivated, which serves as an aiding factor leading to awakening. Do you think Meghiya was a good spiritual friend when he left Lord Buddha to his practice, to go and practice under the lovely orchard tree, or mango orchard? No. Maybe Lord Buddha really needed him. Maybe he was having a tough time with, I don't know, maybe they walked a lot and Lord Buddha's feet were hurting. Imagine how, if he had given Lord Buddha a good foot massage, if you've ever taken care of someone else, as you're like in that example that I'm sharing with you of giving a foot massage to someone who's in pain, it's as if you're massaging your own feet. It's wonderful because you are alleviating the pain of someone else. And that becomes your pain being relieved, gone. You're practicing basically the Brahma Viharas. That's mudita. But I'm just giving you an example, a hypothetical. It's not in the sutta, by the way, that Lord Buddha wanted the foot massage. I'm just bringing that in as a factor that plays in. Maybe sometimes a friend comes in or calls you and they just need to share with you what they have been experiencing that day, or someone to listen to them. And you just listen to them without sharing, without talking, without saying much other than, I'm here for you, allowing them that space. That is being a genuine friend. But especially in the case of a bhikkhu has to be a true, genuine spiritual friend. That allows that type of a bhikkhu, as he's walking away and to do his practice, completely anchored. He doesn't have any fighting in himself, because as he went to practice Venerable Meghiya, despite what Lord Buddha had said, he didn't go with a calm heart. It's impossible. Sooner or later, the remorse will show up. Remorse has an agitating nature to it, quality to it. And that will open up the door for more agitating thoughts. Hence, we have these three nasty akusala states that popped up out of the blue, seemingly, in Venerable Meghiya's heart. So this is not a disconnected theme that Lord Buddha is bringing in, the fact that one has to be a good spiritual friend himself or herself. 2, again, Meghiya, the bhikkhu, becomes virtuous while restraining himself according to the higher code of rules. That's the patimokkha that we have as bhikkhus, the 227 rules that we live by, as he trains himself in a manner where he is always cautiously considering if there is even the slightest possible fault in his behavior, seeing danger in it. This is what will stop a person, whether you're a bhikkhu or not, whether you're a monastic or not, to stop yourself in your tracks, as they say, by bringing in hiri and ottappa, those wise sense of shame and wise sense of fear. Wise, remember, that's the key word here. If there is anything that you detect in your mind, in your heart, that this word, this behavior that I am engaging in, could it possibly generate at one point or another some type of a criticism towards me from those I hold in such high regard? That's the looking for, even like, if there's the slightest possibility, and the person will stop. That's the purest form of practicing sila. Because before it even shows up, you already stopped it. There's no way. There's no leakage. You're not convincing yourself, no, it's okay, I could do this. No. No, you're thinking, maybe it's something that I will be blamed for later, so I shouldn't do it. Is there a possibility that I could be blamed for this? So Lord Buddha says, this is the second crucial condition that must be cultivated, which serves as an aiding factor leading to awakening. Again, Meghiya, the bhikkhu, is very eager and open to listening to a discussion or advice that deals with restraint and incorporating austere practices, whereby his heart opens up without compulsion or resistance, whenever exposed to explanations of living life while wanting little, contented and satisfied with whatever the bhikkhu is provided for. So the bhikkhu here is seeking a less complicated life. What that means also is, this is one of the reasons why we don't have possibilities for us to engage in luxury inducing, if you will, or desiring to have a luxurious lifestyle, that is, those possibilities to be diminished to a nil, to nothing. And that's why, not to have this, not to have that, those temples, those this or those that. It's a headache. You look at others who have those things. Instead, you're sitting there. There's some suttas where I forgot who it was, which venerable to be. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. But the gist of it was, he comes to the person who wants to go forth, and he comes and to another bhikkhu, and the bhikkhu says, "Be careful, because you have lived a luxurious life of a layman, as a wealthy prince who had everything. For starters, you had so much pleasure all around you. You've eaten food any time of day, the best type of food you can imagine. You've had it. When you go to bed," he says, "you sleep with so many women around you. How are you, have you even pondered that you're going to go to bed alone, you're going to wake up alone?" But this person was so determined that he said, "No, it doesn't matter. But you're going to eat once a day. Doesn't matter. You're going to walk barefoot. Doesn't matter." For such a person, that's bringing up tapas. Tapa is that heat energy, which we can term as austere practice. So everyone does tapa. It doesn't have to be like a monastic. So when I'm encouraging you to sit 1 hour when you're used to half an hour, guess what you're practicing? Austerity. You don't have to be sleeping on a bed of nails to be practicing austerities, by the way. Pushing a little bit beyond your comfort zone to go from 45 minutes to 1 hour, or not to freak out when those thoughts or disturbing thoughts come in and try to dislodge you, shake you up, and restlessness to kick in. You say, "No, it's okay, it's okay." That is practicing austerity. You're trusting yourself. No, I got this. I could do this responsibly. And that's how we can sit from 1 hour to 2 hours to 3 hours, etc. That's how you can go on a fast of more than 10 hours, 2 days, 3 days, and not give up on yourself or on the goals for which you started on this path, whether it's the fasting purely for health reasons or for something bigger. Thus, Meghiya, the bhikkhu is always welcoming of talks that discuss the joy of seeking seclusion, always preferring a life without companionships, arousing persistent effort, living with virtue, cultivating and deepening one's samadhi, the gaining of more wisdom, the attainment of release, and the knowledge and vision of release. So we have different levels of intensity, different levels of saturation, if you will, when it comes to any of these items that I just read for you, such as companionships. Some people leave the companions they have in their lay life and they become monastics, but guess what? That desire to have companions has carried over. So now they seek to gang up or have their own companions within the monastic circle, or in having students around them or supporters. The companionship, the desire for companionship has not changed essentially. It's the same, but it just changed outside appearance. So he's saying, no, that's not it. So you have to arouse persistent effort. You have to work on living with virtue. And virtue without practicing samadhi is pointless. It's blind, in fact. The Patimokkha, practicing the Patimokkha I was mentioning earlier, the code of discipline for monastics, without using wisdom, without using specially samadhi proper, it's really blindness. You see hundreds of thousands of people, monks in the world, who are still following that. So Lord Buddha would just shake his head. The king of the Dhamma would shake his head if he were around today, seeing what's happening in the world of bhikkhus, of monastics, of the sasana itself, in fact. Because there needs to be an understanding, that a desire to gain more wisdom, not just stop there at sila, not just stop there even with samadhi. There's a reason for these two, which is to inculcate, bring up more wisdom, so that you develop at least the desire to attain properly. The desire part, I mean, properly. To have the release, which is Nibbāna. And to gain the knowledge and higher understanding of release, the vision of release. This then is the third crucial condition that must be cultivated, which serves as an aiding factor leading to awakening. So being a monk is not just a career, a professional career, which it has unfortunately turned into. Some people are shocked to hear that, but that's what it is. Unfortunately, turned into. But that's not what it is. It should never be. Lord Buddha is saying here clearly. Again, Meghiya, the bhikkhu is always engaged with aroused and persistent energy to abandon and dissolve all evil and unwholesome, bad, merit-making qualities in his heart, akusala kamma, while striving to not give up, but to also punya is also merits. So bad merit-making, papaka or papa is bad. Merits. So, but to further cultivate and amass more wholesome and good merit-making qualities in his heart, which he does with firm resolve. So he's always thinking about making good merits, also to help others make good merits as well. So such a bhikkhu is thinking of putting extra energy, such as in behaving a certain way around others, whereby those others will at least not make bad merit-making decisions or actions because of his behavior. So you see, he's thinking about ricocheting effect. How will my behavior, my word, my behavior, my actions, even my attire, how I'm walking, how I'm behaving physically without even saying a word, how will that carry over and influence those other people over there, so that they don't end up breaking sila. They don't end up having a bad thought about me, therefore produce akusala kamma in their hearts based off of what I started. So the bhikkhu then will have to, from the start, put extra energy in his behavior, in his thinking, to put at least even more energy for the sake of helping those around them not break sila, but also to do things that allow them to gain more merits. And this is again not for bhikkhus only. So when you're interacting, you could have a somber look on your face. You might have had a very tough day. And you have a colleague in the office somewhere who's really, very tough to be around. Or they're having a bad day. Now, mind you, you've also had a bad day, or you had a very difficult, tough conversation over the phone with your supervisor or somebody. And you hang up the phone and you see them from the corner of your eye and you say, I'm not in the mood for this. It's none of my business because I'm dealing with my own bag of stuff. Okay, that's one way, which pretty much anyone might do in your position. But this is not the path for such people. You must have the willingness at that point to say, I wonder if I could do something to help ease just a little bit, just a tiny little bit of the pressure of this other person, such as getting up and going to their office and then passing by and say, I'm going downstairs to get some tea or something, or I'm going to go outside for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Would you like to accompany me? Or how are you? You've had a bad day. I could hear the conversation over the phone. Are you okay? That's it. Or just, if they're too hot to touch, too hot to approach, as they say, smile to them, just kindly, with kind, tolerant, beautiful eyes. Just open your eyes and tell them that they matter, and this day will also pass. That look, and just smile to them and walk, because they might not even be ready for how are you. Guess what you did? You actually opened up a new universe of beautiful possibilities for this other person. So you chose a set of actions by putting your world, at least temporarily, on the side, and you went and gave attention to someone else. That took persistent energy from you. That took, again, a lot of metta from you, which, by the way, when you return back to your own world of turmoil, guess what? They won't be there as intensely. Magically, they would have receded in their intensity because you've changed. You made room in your heart and your mind. This is another deeper level of understanding generosity. So the qualities of the heart are going to be tasted by you directly, not through some book, but through these interactions with other fellow human beings around you. That's the best retreat you could ever go or attend. That actually puts you almost smack dab in the center of Lord Buddha's own Sangha. Imagine you sitting there with Lord Buddha. Can you? Your workplace can turn into that type of a Buddha field, if you will, if you know what to do and how to do it. But you have to come out. That requires, again, trust from you and resolve, which today human beings are being harangued. They're being pushed away from being like that or becoming like that. We're becoming self-absorbed in the worst type possible, in the worst way possible, forgetting to look over our shoulder and see, how did my actions what is the bearing, what is the impact they're having on you over there. Apathy is what we have, not empathy. Lord Buddha is talking about that, generating good merit-making qualities in you and in others, because it's impossible for you to have a person who's purifying themselves and the world around them not be affected by it. That's another way that you will know that you're dealing with a noble disciple, by the way, or that your practice is improving from the people around you and their behavior. That's another litmus test. This is the fourth crucial condition that must be cultivated, which serves as an aiding factor leading to awakening. In addition, the bhikkhu is constantly becoming wise, for he is always keenly observing with his detached discernment the appearing and disappearing nature of the five aggregates one tends to grab onto, all of which he carefully scrutinizes with his noble penetrative insight that takes him straight to the very ending of suffering itself. So now Lord Buddha is talking about the Pancha Khanda, the five aggregates, specifically the Pancha Upadana Khanda, the qualities that we hold, the things that make up a person, like we've talked about, name and form, or nama rupa, sanya, or perceptions or memories. Well, obviously feeling before that. And then you have habitual drives that are the sankharas. And then you have the vijnana, consciousnesses. You have eye, you have forms, boom, there's consciousness. You have ear, you have sounds, boom, you have sound consciousness, ear consciousness, etc. But once the consciousness is happening, what majority of us do is we go with it. We're taken for a ride. But such a wise person is watching these different states come in, appear, manifest, and disappear. So you don't care what these things are trying to say, like the feeling. We worship feelings. We're always looking for feelings. The bottom line is feelings. There's a feeling that is desired to be experienced. Every time you're doing something, every time you're thinking something, the bottom line is there's a craving. Like here, we're panting, we're like a dog. We're looking for some type of feeling. It's your job to know and identify what is it that I'm really seeking. Let's say here's a scenario. If you come across a person that you know, or the type of a person who has some features that remind you of certain people that you've met that have not left a very pleasant taste in your palate. Okay? Before they open their mouth, you already are anticipating a certain type of feeling to be generated in you, ultimately. Like, let's say you go to buy a used car from a used car salesman or any salesman. As they approach you, you know what they're trying to do. Already you're protecting yourself. You have layers and layers of protection. It's like, I'm not interested. I'm just browsing here. I'm not buying. I'm not buying. So thank you. What is that? You're creating buffers. So there's the other type of buffering that we're doing all the time, and that is seeking a certain type of feeling. This is deep. When you're practicing I'm sharing this with you so that you will have an extra set of tools to look at your so-called integrity of your experience. Looking at, okay, what is it that I'm after in this? I'm thinking like this, but if I say yes, okay, you're right to yourself, let's say, in your mind. What is that going to generate? It could be positive, it could be negative also. Such as if you're used to fear, or oh, the worst thing is going to happen. That's also creating some type of feeling in you, isn't it? So that is not the healthy thing to do, to just follow along that trend, that blind path of taking the feeling as a reality. Because Lord Buddha is saying it has a moment of beginning and it has an end. No feeling can stay. No memory or perception can stay. No form can stay indefinitely. That's why we have anicca. Anicca is not a word. We have to stop worshiping words in this Dhamma. People have this tendency of worshiping words and thinking that the words mean the reality that they're representing. No. Words are just words. They're just there to help you. They're not it, quote unquote. Now, this is the fifth crucial condition that must be cultivated, which serves as an aiding factor leading to awakening. Now, Meghiya, when the bhikkhu associates with true spiritual friends, so now Lord Buddha is listing all the five that he just went through, summarizing them rather. Being surrounded by such good companions in the holy life, then it follows naturally that he will benefit from their support as he becomes more virtuous, while restraining himself according to the higher code of rules, as he trains himself in a manner that where he is always cautiously considering if there is even the slightest possible fault in his behavior, seeing danger in it. Further, Meghiya, when the bhikkhu associates with true spiritual friends, being surrounded by such good companions in the holy life, then it follows naturally that he will become welcoming of talks that discuss the joy of seeking seclusion, always preferring a life without companionships. That means seeking out of companionship as your way of having a good life. Like your happiness depends on your companions. Having companions in a certain type, that's not healthy. Lord Buddha says you need to realize the futility of it. Companions is a good thing in small doses, even the best. There's an Arabic saying that even if your fingers are all made of honey, you don't go licking all of them at once. Transliteration. But basically, you lick, one, and that's enough. Don't expect, to have, your life surrounded by companions all the time. When are you going to sit down and practice? When are you going to absorb what was discussed with these incredible human beings whom you call companions? Even that. You need time alone. It's like salt. You can think of it like that in food. It gives it some, but too much of it is like, whoa, it's going to ruin it. Arousing persistent effort, living with virtue, cultivating and deepening one's samadhi, the gaining of more wisdom, the attainment of release, and the knowledge and vision of release. Also, Meghiya, when the bhikkhu associates with true spiritual friends, being surrounded by such good companions in the holy life, then it follows naturally that he will be engaged with aroused and persistent energy to abandon and dissolve all evil and unwholesome, bad, merit-making qualities in his heart, while striving to not give up, but to further cultivate and amass more wholesome and good merit-making qualities in his heart, which he does with firm resolve. We pick up qualities from those around us. That's why in the Mangala Sutta, the very first verse, Lord Buddha says to know not to associate with fools, not to call fools your companions. Modern parlance, they say, you should be the smartest person among your friends. And if you are, leave such friends. Go find yourself a group of people in whose company you are actually the dumbest. You're the least knowledgeable. Why? Because they will lift you up. But if you, flaunt around and, indulge in the company of friends where you are the star, leave. That's not, you're basically wasting your time. Leadership classes talk about this. They say you must have 5 friends, and among those 5, you should be the least intelligent, the least skilled. Why? Because that means you're being taught, even through osmosis, by these individuals around you. So they're lifting you. They're lifting you higher and higher every time. But today, it's the opposite that's being promulgated everywhere you turn. Everybody wants to become like overnight sensation. They want to be the star. They want to be the celebrity, which, defeats the whole purpose. So companions are not simply there to kill time or to give you that good feeling. That's not it. They're tiny, minuscule parts of it, you might say. Yes, fine. But the majority of it, it has to be an educational environment, atmosphere for you. Especially when it comes to bhikkhus having companions. That's why it's a kuti. It's not a sala of kutis. Kuti means a hut. You just live in a hut. As a bhikkhu, I have to find seclusion every day. Otherwise, even though it's quiet, we need to have that seclusion. Not just as a bhikkhu, every one of us. But in this case, because it's addressing Venerable Meghiya, is specifically talking about the bhikkhu. And when the bhikkhu associates with true spiritual friends, being surrounded by such good companions in the holy life, then it follows naturally that he will become wise, for he is always keenly observing with his detached discernment of the appearing and disappearing nature of the five aggregates one tends to grab onto, all of which he carefully scrutinizes with his noble penetrative insight that takes him straight to the very ending of suffering itself. Now, having built this strong foundation by establishing himself in these five factors, the bhikkhu must further work on cultivating these four things. Remember, it's the book of the nine, so we just went over the five, so we have to have four more. So, number 6, in order to shun and get rid of passion or greed, he must develop in his heart the capacity to see the repulsive and disgusting nature of the very object of his passion or greed. What society tells you the opposite of, by the way. So you must strive in spite of the elements or the influences around you on a daily basis. You have to be your own parent. I tell people often. You need to learn how to protect yourself from what's coming in from all your 6 sense doors. And you have to also nurture yourself properly, not just with food, of course. Food comes, is priority, but not just with edible, consumable food, but the food for the senses, the contacts you're making through your senses. What type of contacts are you making? Where is this contact taking place? By whom? Hence, companions come in. Are you listening to the news? Watching the news? What type of news? They're all negative mostly now, right? And that's one of the reasons why I will always encourage individuals to be listening to the Dhamma, reading the suttas. If you're going to be exposing your senses to hearing something, there's, sounds of nature. You can play them on YouTube and things like that to calm you down and to kind of really feel connected, even if you're in the middle of a busy city somewhere in the world. To try to create that oasis for yourself. But having done so, look at those things that you have an attraction for or towards, and look for, because what that attraction is, even with affection, it's an enemy, affection. Even it's like the dangerous aspect of some people when I have to pull them back when they're practicing metta and they take it into affection land. Soon it turns into attraction, which is not what we want. So that's missing the whole point. But with food, for example, people develop greed and lusting of food, like I was saying earlier, passion for food. There's a whole industry in the world for passion. Somebody once sent me a video of a Korean nun somewhere in Korea, South Korea. And she's supposed to be a Buddhist nun. She lives in a monastery, in Mahayana, albeit. And what she does, she's a specialist at cooking. The amount of time she puts at her cooking, I mean, she became so famous, they invited her to New York, Manhattan, other places in the world to learn from her. The amount of time and detail that she's putting in creating kimchi and this and that and that and that. I mean, if there's 24 hours in the day, 20 hours is being spent on food or thinking about food or preparing food or eating food. That is missing the whole point that Lord Buddha is making here, because there is a tremendous lust and passion for food. It's supposed to be poop at the end of the day. So what's this big hoopla about? Take it easy. It's just food. So you see, even something as essential to the survival of oneself can turn into a major stumbling block, where it becomes passion ridden. Lord Buddha is saying, see the repulsive of that. That's why repulsive aspect of that. That's why traditionally, when the bhikkhu is collecting food in his bowl, everything goes in. It doesn't go in a separate bowl. The dessert. Oh, I have flan for you, Bhante. I have this cake. I have, Black Forest cake, Bhante, for you. Yes, yes. Oh, by the way, we also have this delicious chow mein prepared for you, this and that. Okay, put them all together. No, you can't do that. I've spent hours preparing. No, they're going to go into the same destination. What is that? It's not like you're not appreciating the effort that these people have put in, the time, the money, all that. No, this is shocking you, first of all. And then by extension, those who are talking about it, especially those preparers of the food, because ultimately they see there's no big deal about this. This is just sustaining this body, which is, by the way, a moving cemetery. Your body is a moving cemetery, constantly. Cemetery of cells, dead cells. When I used to teach biology, I would say, during that time of me just snapping my fingers, millions of cells died in your body, and millions more, were born, depending on the age that the person is in. If they're very young, it's going to be really in multiples of hundreds of millions of cells. And that's such a short period of time. As the person ages, it becomes less and less new cells being born. Well, what's happening with the dead ones? Hence the cemetery part. That's inside of you. You're carrying it, and when you're sweating, your sweat glands release some of them. When you go to urinate, it comes out, some of it. When you excrete, some of it will come out, the eyes through the tear ducts, but a lot of it will stay. Walking cemetery. Nothing to write home about, So all that food, the delicious food, this, that, what is it? I like to give the image of you have the most delicious meal in front of you, finally prepared, and you're there, and it's there, it's done, and it's there. You take a spoonful of it, or using your chopsticks or a fork, whatever, your fingers, you put it in your mouth. Don't even chew. Take it back out and put it right there in front of you. How appetizing is it now? Do you want to eat it? Next to it, there's the plate that hasn't been touched yet. Oh, that's so appealing, but not this one. What happened? I just put it in my mouth and removed it. See how fickle it is? How deceptive it is? So Lord Buddha is saying, you develop the disgusting nature. In fact, one of the perceptions that we have to use, or sannyas in meditation, is at one point or another, is the contemplation of the repulsive nature of food. That's not for everyone, of course, but especially those who are dealing with this incredible amount of passion and attachment to food. So, but this is not just about food. This could be about physical touch, etc. 7. And to shun and get rid of anger or irritation, he must develop in his heart the capacity for benevolent loving kindness towards the very object of his anger or irritation. Remember, he's talking to Venerable Meghiya, who was having what type of thoughts? Thoughts of sensuality. So when you find yourself completely absorbed in being pulled into lustful thoughts, bring up the sense of repulsive nature of that thing that you were lost in. Could be physical attraction. It could be, even sound. Sometimes people are in love with voice or music. My grandmother used to say, the sound of a church bell sounds beautiful from afar. But try to go to the actual chamber where, the thing where, the room where they have the bell hanging, and sit there if you can, as they're hitting the bell. I once climbed up the Tower of Pisa, and I was sitting there right at the top where there are several bells, and they started all going off at the same time. The people said, okay, be careful if you want to go up, this is going to happen because it's that time. Are you sure you want to do it? And if you do, just, close your ears. They weren't that loud because I guess somehow they muffled it, but still, it didn't sound as sweet as it would have sounded if I had been a kilometer away. So always looking at the other aspect of what the passion is trying to tell you, the opposite of that, because all of a sudden you're going to see it deflate immediately. If you have a physical attraction or a sexual attraction, I'm speaking to lay people now, always look at, if you're looking at any feature of the body, whatever it is, don't stop where the visible is apparent. What I mean by that, try to visually penetrate the skin by 0.5 millimeter. Go deeper than the epidermis. Go deeper and see how appealing that body is. Does it stink? How about the intestines? What's inside the intestines? Oh, this beautiful person, this beautiful, attractive person. Go into their gut. Go to the urinary bladder. Physically locate yourself, minuscule yourself, and put it right there and smell all that world of aroma. Is it still attractive? How about the skin on the surface? Okay, just rub your skin, rub your face with, or whatever people are, because also they have passionate involvement with their own beauty, I notice. So take a little bit of that and put it under a microscope, and look how many lovely organisms are floating around, tiny little monsters on your skin. This takes away all that attachment we have over these things that are transitory, all geared towards allowing you to detach yourself from being pulled in with thoughts of sensuality, because they will dislodge you. They will create agitation in the heart. That's the whole point. Venerable Meghiya was agitated. That's why he couldn't sit for 5 minutes or even 10 seconds. He had to leave. An agitated mind is no way going to experience contentment. No way is an agitated mind going to experience Nibbāna. Similarly, with someone who has irritation, whether it's a person that is completely intolerable, someone you consider to be a vicious criminal, and then you see a picture of a Hitler, let's say, playing with his German shepherds, his dogs, his canines, up in his castle somewhere in Vienna. And it's a beautiful scene if you just take that and completely eliminate the other aspect of the reality of his life. Completely benign, completely lovely, in fact. And then you zoom back and you see, and your cause of irritation. So to bring in other opposite aspects of whatever it is that you're fixated upon can deflate, can reduce the agitation in the heart. Because ultimately you're taking the 5 aggregates to be real. You're holding on. There's a thisness and there's a thatness. Bhante calls it otherwiseness. So that is this object and subject reality that you've created. It's crystallized, it's so fixed, it's so solid, but there's nothing solid in existence. Things are changing. Even Hitler was a nice kid at one point. But we like to think in black and white terms, especially when it comes to us. So you see, now there's a space, a soft space that's being created around your experience and your understanding of the experience, where you stop taking things to be so real, so solid, so unchanging. So there's no surprise that Lord Buddha started by declaring the three characteristics of existence with anicca. Impermanence is the very first. And that establishes the ground, in a sense, to help us always to come back to and to find peace. Anicca is giving us a refuge. It gives you protection from this solid world that you've constructed for yourself, that this is who I am. Or which version are you that you're talking about? When you were 10? When you were last year? Or yesterday? Which version? When you were in this relationship versus that? Also, Meghiya, to completely cut off his incessant thoughts and stop their flow, he must develop his mindfulness of the in and out breathing. He must develop his mindfulness of the in and out breathing. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. Webu Sayadaw was very clear on this. Actually, it was clear in all of his Dhamma talks because it was so very simple. And he would just say, just come back to here. He would point to the area right under your nose, or your nostrils. Just come back here. This is where the Dhamma is. You don't have to go and be lost in all the different teachings and complain about, oh, Lord Buddha gave so many teachings, Bhante. Which one am I going to be following? When and if you experience that moment, which Mara loves, by the way, and promotes, that perplexity, shall we say, you don't need to engage in a mental, intellectual battle with yourself, because that's also going to do what? Create more agitation, which is not what we want. So if you're overwhelmed for whatever reason, even though I've given you, let's say, most of you, the breath, the metta practice, you can use the breath at that moment just to kind of get your bearings straight, bearings right, and just like, okay, so calm down. And then notice the qualities of the breath. What is it? Is it short? Is it long? Can you see the beginning of the breath, the middle, and then the end? Just to observe, not analytically. Can you notice if the breath coming in has a different texture? Like its temperature, is it different than on the way out? Already, you've brought yourself back to what really counts. Sometimes, I mean, I've found myself having to explain why I teach metta more so than the breath, for example, or maranasati or something. I do teach those as well and others. But when it comes to our time period, especially the consciousness, if you will, the state of being of many beings, human beings coming to this world at this time, we really need work in the metta department. We are miserably in need of, we're in pain, basically. We need metta, especially. There needs to be that healing taking place. First, Lord Buddha was had perfected metta. That's why every Buddha becomes a Buddha thanks to the breath. The breath is a powerful meditation, but especially in this time period, there is metta lacking on such a grand scale. So that's one of the reasons why, because that question comes up every so often from viewers and some students in the past. But it's an important question nevertheless. So as you're practicing, there needs to be huge amounts of metta at your disposal for you, in the form of also forgiveness, self-acceptance, but moving out of that with the help of the sila portion, or your virtuous development, your virtuous living. And that is going to reduce your agitation and make you available to others around you. And that is a perfect fertile soil for wisdom to develop in you. And then there's only up, 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 and up you go in this path, while anchoring yourself firmly in the Dhamma. So that's what I wanted to say. So number 9, and to fully remove and shake off from its very roots the false sense of a substantial self, he must constantly look at himself through the lens of impermanence, which sees everything as changing and never being the same. So that's like really nails it in. Because there needs to be the understanding, like I was saying earlier, that there is no this versus that. Because when I say this, I'm also saying, in other words, that this has a definite shape that is unchanging. That is this. It has a certain dimension to it, and that's the end of that. Versus that one over there, the otherwise. That one is different than this. When I present this argument, or in my head actually, when I create this dichotomy, then I have, in essence, justified my delusion, my ignorance. Just like Venerable Meghiya justified, oh no, Bhante, you are already perfect. You're the Buddha. I, on the other hand, am not. And I have work to do. So you stay there, I'm here. So he gave himself a definite shape, in a sense. This is what Lord Buddha would call atta. Atta versus anatta. If you're a staunch holder of this concept of atta, then there's no way that you can actually attain Nibbāna, or in fact, even attain any state of calm in your practice, or even develop in sila, in virtue. Why? Because this person will say, I will never change. This is it. They might not verbalize it. But when you're taking precepts, when you're saying, I'm not going to hurt or kill animals or beings intentionally, when you're saying, I'm not going to take anything that is not mine, that is not offered to me freely against anyone's will, I'm not going to take anything that belongs to someone else intentionally. What you're saying is, unlike the past, I'm willing to take a step into the unknown, which means that those walls, those dimensions I mentioned, are quite porous. They're malleable. They're changing. They're anatta. This is another way of understanding. So you have to allow yourself that room to change. Which takes us back to what I was saying in the beginning about saddha, faith. What is faith? That means malleability. You're trusting you. If Venerable Angulimala or Ahinsaka was not trusting of himself, inspired by the trust given to him by Lord Buddha himself, he would never have put down the sword. And he would have had his 1,000th victim as well, his own mother. He was the classic, serial killer par excellence in Buddhist history. Yet he became an arahant. By giving up that life, by giving up the image that he was only that and he was never going to amount to anything more. He was a living embodiment of anatta. because he was willing to walk away, but that doesn't mean that he was not suffering. The realization would kick in every day that, oh my, the horrific things I've done to people and their families and their loved ones. He had to live with that until he became an arahant, where it just dropped. Because if you recall your past lives, we have done far worse than Angulimala in the vastness of our samsaric lifetimes. So life is helping you to give you hope and faith in you by giving you this thing called amnesia. From life to life, you don't recall your past lives. When people say, well, I can't let go of my mother or my father or my loved ones, I say, which ones? Which parents are you talking about? You're just using selective memory. Selective, well, an amnesia to be, exact. But life is giving us a second chance. So that's what we need to give ourselves every day. Giving yourself a second chance, which means that your dimensions are becoming more porous, more malleable. Instead of saying, this is who I am, I'm not changing. That's complete false. Completely. Everything is changing. Everything is changing, whether you like it or not. Even in biology, we know for a fact every 7 to 10 years, your body completely is changed. Bones included, heart tissue included, eyeballs included, brain included. Cells rejuvenate. They change, they die. Even brain cells are being regenerated. But our ideas, are they? Our hang-ups. That's what we understand by ignorance. Because biology, physics, chemistry, everything is coming in and saying, there is anicca, folks. But we, on the other hand, say, no, I'm going to go and sit under the orchard and I'm going to meditate myself to Nibbāna, like Meghiya did. That stubbornness, I mean. And the way to destroy that stubbornness is by coming down to earth and saying, let me be a little bit more humble. When you read the suttas, when you're listening to the Dhamma talks, just approach it with some humility. Because you need to start from that, because you're working with your mind, which is a powerful, powerful tool. It can be our worst enemy, as the case was with Venerable Meghiya, or it can be your best ally. Lord Buddha concludes by saying, now Meghiya, by having developed the perception of the non-substantiality of a self, and with nothing to hold on to any further, he completely destroys the conceit I am, and with his heart appeased and no longer agitated, he then experiences Nibbāna here in this very birth. Diteva dhamme. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. A lovely sutta. Excuse me. But I want to read you a recent translation I did, as I was mentioning, I think, in the beginning, from the Theragatha. I didn't mention this, I think, yes. This is Venerable Meghiya's verses of his declaration of his anya, or his awakening. This is from the Theragatha verses, which are the sayings or verses of the awakened arahants or bhikkhus. We also have the Therigatha. So a few months ago, I started, or a month ago, I don't remember, translating the Theragatha as well. So interestingly enough, I came across Venerable Meghiya's verses. This is post his awakening. So I wanted to share that with you. So this is from the Theragatha number 1.66 from the Book of the Ones, and it's a Meghiya Thera. Here goes. the great vanquisher who, having transcended all dhammas and gone beyond all of them, is the one who himself taught and guided me. As I carefully listened to the instructions he gave to me, while living close to him, ever mindful and attentive to my teacher, I realized the three knowledges. Hence, I declare the dispensation of the Buddha is now complete. This was the verse spoken by the Venerable Meghiya. So we are quite glad and happy that he also made it. And we can too. That's why we are here in this body. And especially, that's why you are listening and participating. You're giving it a priority. That's what this is saying. Your presence here is saying that. That means you're committed. You were committed to not let go of the sustenance you were getting from the uterine wall in your mother's womb. That takes tremendous effort on your part, each of us. You weren't just passively there. There was desire to be born. You are born. You're out. Now you're facing reality that you've avoided for countless lifetimes. And when I say you, I mean we. But the Dhamma is the way out. There is no other way out. Otherwise, we're going to keep going through the samsara. Samsara or samsarana. Just keep on floating around life to birth, death, life, birth, death, birth, death. Lord Buddha would say again and again, there is no comfort, there is no refuge in any of the 31 realms of existence. The only path, the only tradition, the only religion out there, the only teaching that says that out loud, it doesn't rely on some heavenly life, some divine realm for us to be reborn into and stay there, even for what seems like an eternity, but there is no such time as eternity in any of these 31 realms. So this is a mature path for mature people, but kind people, loving people, affectionate to themselves, kind to themselves, appreciative of the journey that you've been on to get you this far. So don't give up. The Dhamma will take us, like it has to Venerable Meghiya and Lord Buddha before him. So I will pause here and see if there are any questions or comments. The sutta, by the way, is on the Mind Released website. I recommend you print it out and read it at your own pace. Well, if there are no questions, let us transfer some merits. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May your practice be infused with new life every day. May you be kind and gentle with yourself when need be, especially in the morning, especially when you're starting your day, or especially when you've been harsh with yourself. But at the same time, also being deliberate and willful and choose to stay on the path with your sati and always allowing more room for punya to take place. That's trust, the healthy way. Trusting yourself. Every one of the arahants were not arahants at one point. Could you take that in? Including Lord Buddha, he was not an arahant before becoming an arahant, just like you. So it's a before and after trick that you play in your mind, like to kind of settle you down, to see that you're no different. Oh, so I have a chance. Oh, yes, absolutely. Be well. May the blessings of the Triple Gem be with you, your loved ones, and may you discover new layers of yourself through the Dhamma every day. Until next time. Sukhyo.